Hello there, you're watching yet another edition of Times Exclusive with me, Wezi Kasambala, again, all the way from the capital city of Lilongwe. And today we have the honor of having an exclusive interview with the recently appointed Director General of the Anti-Corruption Bureau. You remember that this is probably one of the most important institutions that we have in Malawi, given the challenges that Malawi is facing when it comes to the fight against corruption and such malpractice. So it's only right that the man at the helm be put in the hot seat to tell us what he has in store for us when it comes to leading the fight against corruption. Reyneck Matemba, thank you so much for having us. We're so honored to be here in Lilongwe. You've only recently just been appointed, but obviously you've already been in the system. You were already in the system as the deputy to the last Director General. But despite that, I think I would want to know initially, what's your vision, first of all, for the ACB? What is the kind of anti-corruption bureau that you would want to see in an ideal world?
Right. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to the people of Malawi through Times TV. First and foremost, as you're aware, we have a mandate as a bureau. It is clearly spelled in Section 10 of the Corrupt Practices Act. Basically, it's two-pronged. It's preventative and law enforcement. Under preventative, we have Corruption Prevention Department and the Public Education Department. Under law enforcement, we have the Investigations Department and the Prosecution Department.
Right. So
we have a number, a number of activities that we do under these two broader mandates that we have. Now, about the vision that we have as a bureau, with me leading, first and foremost is we have to be guided by what the law provides, because that is what we are created for. That's why we were established as a bureau. For me, the second thing that I would want to see, you might have noted, of course I will not give you more details, I'm of the view that the people of Malawi out there had their own views, they made their own opinions, but I thought there was a time people questioned the image of the bureau, our credibility. So the first.
You don't think it's still questioned? You say there was a time. You think it's not in question at the moment?
They might still continue questioning our credibility, but I will try to talk to the people of Malawi through the media, like yourself.
Right.
That may be if they could give us another opportunity, another chance to prove ourselves to the people of Malawi. So that will be one of the major tasks that I'll have to do, to make sure that we regain the trust of the people of Malawi. They should look at us as a credible and independent institution that is there to provide a service to the people of Malawi. We might have made one or two decisions. We might have acted in a way that people started questioning us. But it's not that it was by design or that we were compromised. But of course, people are entitled to come up with their own opinions. It's about perception. So for us, we'll have to work on that perception. It was negative. We have to reverse that. So that's one of the things that I'll have to concentrate on, apart from, like I've said before, fulfilling the mandate that we have as a bureau.
Okay. Forgive me, but you do sound a little bit evasive on that one. Because when I asked you what your vision is, I want to know what you would want to see differently. But the fact that you've said you want to work under the guidelines of the legal framework that's already there, that's perfectly understandable. But still, I'm sure Malawians want to understand what Reyneck Matemba is going to do differently to, for example, what Lucan Khondowe did, and indeed his predecessor. Obviously, we want you to work within the legal parameters, but I'm sure you have your own personal ideals and personal ideas to where you want to see the ACB going, how you want things to be handled, irrespective of the guidelines.
Yeah, I hear you. I deliberately mentioned the Corrupt Practices Act, maybe because of my profession as a lawyer. We are normally guided by the law in whatever we want to do.
Absolutely.
The moment you depart from what is provided for, whether it's a statute, an act of parliament, regulations, then you're in trouble. So That will always be at the back of my mind.
Mm-hmm.
But I deliberately mentioned the issue of credibility, because
Mm-hmm.
the moment people continue having questions over our actions, then we are doomed. Whatever we do, people question it.
Yeah.
So that's the most important thing for us as of now, to make sure that people start trusting us again. Because, we live within the society. We do not live outside of Malawi. We read newspapers. We read articles online. What people talk about us, the comments that they make. For me personally, I look at them, at those comments or observations that people make from a positive angle. They might discredit us, they might insult us, but I believe people do that out of goodwill, so that we begin to do the right things and not just to discredit us. So we'll take it from there, to say when people start questioning our actions, they want us to do the right things and not wanting us to fail. Now, to answer your question again, I'll go again to the mandate that we have. The best way of preventing corruption or fighting corruption is preventative. It is cheap, it is not time consuming. One area where I will also have to concentrate again, apart from working on our image as a bureau, is the other two mandates that we have under law enforcement, investigations and prosecution.
Okay.
This is one other area where we hear most complaints from the people of Malawi, that investigations take long, as well as cases in court take long to be concluded. But again, this is not by design. It depends on the type of investigation that we're doing and the type of case that we're doing. Let me start with the cases in court. As you know, in a case, there are a lot of parties to a case. It's not only us, prosecution. You have the defense, you have the accused person himself or herself, you have the witnesses, and you have the court. For a case to be able to move at a quicker pace, it depends on all of us. One party cannot move a case faster. Courts can try to do that, but lawyers always find ways of delaying cases or frustrating cases. So even though we get complaints as a law enforcement agency about the delays of cases in court, it's something which you always try to work on together with our partners or parties to a case, the courts and the defense. But it's easy for one party to delay a case, something which we do not take pride in. It's something which affects our work because cases pile up. Let me conclude on that one with investigations. There are other investigations that we can conclude within 2 or 3 months. There are others that can take years. In the Bureau, we have cases that we've been investigating for close to 3 years now. There might be need for our investigators to travel out of the country, or if they can't travel, we'll have to rely on other law enforcement agencies across the country to provide information to us. It hasn't been easy in that area.
All right. And what are your thoughts on reforms to ensure the independence of the ACB? Because that's probably the biggest issue here. There are sentiments that perhaps the ACB isn't as independent as we would hope or we would like, and it's only independent up to a point, or perhaps just in theory, but not necessarily in practice. To the extent that there's even been a call to completely have reforms to really enforce some degree of independence. First of all, what is your position on how independent you are to date? But secondly, if indeed we were to go ahead with reforms, what would your view on that be?
I'm glad you raised that question, Wes. I would have been surprised if you had not raised it. Because that's one area where we get discredited, perception that we are not independent, we are influenced. I'll be honest with you. This is my 5th year in the Bureau. I've been here for 4 years. I've never received any instruction from anybody to prosecute a case which I'm not supposed to prosecute, or to have somebody arrested whom we are not supposed to arrest, or to drop a case we are not supposed to drop. In other words, in as far as I'm concerned, professionally, I have not received any interference in my work. But let me highlight.
But
one
could
more
that
thing.
be because, look, at the end of the day, you were the deputy then, right? Is it possible that your boss was the one who was getting leaned over and you weren't even, or presumably you may have just thought that that was happening, but you didn't know that for a fact? Because you were the second in line then, perhaps you wouldn't have been directly in the firing line.
I might not be able to answer on behalf of my
Yes.
former boss, Mr. Khondowe, but I would say 90% of what was happening in the bureau, I knew what was happening. I might not have been part and parcel of whatever was happening or whatever decision was made, but at least I had an idea of what was happening. Like I've said, let me not talk about
Yeah, because I was going to say you would probably concede, though,
Yes.
therefore, that it would be very difficult and maybe challenging for you to therefore say that your professional job was never interfered with, because you cannot speak for Lucan Khondowe, for example.
Yes.
You don't know what his dealings or interactions were with the powers that be. So that's my point, and because you're talking about perceptions,
Yes.
but those perceptions would only pertain to you in your capacity as the Deputy Director
Yes.
General.
Yeah. Rightly so, yes. I will not speak
Yes.
100%
Yeah.
on behalf of
'Cause you
Mr.
can't.
Khondowe, because I can't. But in as far as legal work and prosecution, there I can.
Okay.
Because
And you
the-
were never influenced.
the buck stopped with me.
Okay.
And I had a final say
Okay.
on legal matters. A final say, not as telling Mr. Khondowe what to do, but I was able to advise him. But as you know, advice by its nature can be taken or ignored.
Yeah.
But for legal matters, at least I had an idea what was happening.
Okay.
So, Mr. Khondowe was not a lawyer.
Yes.
He was not going to court. I was speaking especially for prosecution of cases and the cases that we have to take to court. There, for me, as an individual, I would not say I was compromised or somebody gave me instructions to do something which I was not supposed to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So would you therefore say that these allegations that were rife and that were circulating once upon a time about how you and your boss were not speaking with one voice were purely because you have different expertise? You were the legal person, he wasn't, and not because perhaps you felt that he was being influenced?
I would not answer that question 100%. I'll answer part of it.
Okay.
Because whether he was influenced or not, we'll go back
We
to
don't
the
know,
same
yes.
issue that we
But
don't know.
what I'm talking about is there was always allegations when you were his deputy that
Yes.
perhaps you felt that you were more in a position to soberly and objectively handle matters because of your legal background, but also that maybe somehow you felt he was being influenced. So you're saying no, you have different expertise. That's what you're saying. Right?
Yes. I'll be honest with you. Just like in any family, disagreements will always be there. I had my own disagreements with Mr. Khondowe. Several of them. Unfortunately, two of them came out into the public arena.
Yes.
Because it's something which I think went out of control, and I'm referring to the issue of MERA, Malawi Energy Regulatory Authority, and ESCOM.
Okay.
I'm talking about that because it came out. It was in the public domain. We had different views on those two issues. And I can repeat that. We had different, I had my own perspective,
And he had
his
his.
own perspective.
Okay.
That's why we differed. But we differed on a number of issues that people are not aware of. But we had to find a way of resolving those issues internally.
And did you?
I've mentioned these two because the public ended up knowing. But there were several that we were
Okay.
able to resolve between ourselves. But I'm glad that you've raised this important aspect
Of independence?
of different backgrounds.
Yes.
Because I have a legal background, Mr. Khondowe had an audit accounting background. There are some other issues that our approaches were different. But like I've said, we had to find a compromise and move way forward. Yeah.
And somehow you managed to find common ground, presumably.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, how do you feel you can execute your duties, Reyneck, given the kind of atmosphere we're operating in at the moment, the way things are? Because you yourself said that clearly that we can do better when we think about the ACB and when we think about corruption. But at the end of the day, there are still certain tendencies that are enshrined in the fabric of our being as Malawians. Certain, there's kind of a poison in terms of our public institutions. Do you feel confident you can still execute your duties despite these kind of dynamics still being at play? Because you, and indeed the ACB, might have the best intentions to change, but you're not operating in isolation.
No.
You're still operating in tandem with other institutions and other frameworks around you, which are still enshrined in that and consumed by that poison. Can you do it? Is it doable?
Yes, but before we go to this question, I think I didn't answer part of your question about the independence.
Yes.
Can I answer it?
Go ahead.
Briefly.
Yeah.
I said you did well to raise it. When you look at the Corruption Act, sections 5 and 7, they give that legal mandate of appointing the director and the deputy to the president. I'll tell you one thing which I had a discussion on with the president. I had a 2-hour discussion with him. I will not tell you everything,
Okay.
but I'll tell you one thing. When the contract for Mr. Khondowe is coming to an end, the president invited me, and he told me, I want you to succeed Mr. Khondowe. So we had a discussion. But the president raised one thing which maybe most people in Malawi are not aware of. He told me, I'll have to again appoint the director of the ACB, because that's what the law provides as we speak now. When Mr. Khondowe's contract is coming to an end, I have to appoint a director. At that point, the law will not have been changed. It will still require me, as the president, to make the appointment. So I have to do it.
Right.
But the perception out there is that one area where we have to change is that one where I'm not supposed to appoint the director of the bureau. Until that is changed, the law requires me to do it.
Yes.
So I'll appoint you. So that's the first thing.
But I think we understand that. I think we, as Malawians, we get
Yes.
that. Until there's some kind of a complete overhaul, he will
Yes.
still have those powers. Which
Thank
is
you.
precisely why
Yes.
we're pushing for some of those executive powers to be relieved. That's
All
the
right.
point, isn't it?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
So it will be up to the people of Malawi
Yes.
to make sure that the law is changed, if they want the law to be changed. But as we speak, I think the president will continue appointing the director and the deputy of the bureau.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to take a short break. Hold that thought. I think you had something you were about to say, but we'll be right back. If you're just tuning in, you're watching this week's edition of Times Exclusive, all the way from the capital city of Lilongwe. And today we are talking to the recently and newly appointed Director General of the Anti-Corruption Bureau, former Deputy Director General Reyneck Matemba. But we'll be right back after this short break. Welcome back. You're watching Times Exclusive all the way from Lilongwe here. Remember, brought to you by Rainbow Paints, and you're with me, Wezi Kasambala. Today, we're talking to the new Director General of the Anti-Corruption Bureau, Reyneck Matemba. Reyneck, the Anti-Corruption Bureau, correct me if I'm wrong, has been in existence since 1998. Am I right?
Operationally, yes.
Yes.
But it was established around 1997.
Okay.
Yeah.
So roughly 20 years.
Yes.
2 decades. Quite a long time. Why is corruption now on the increase then? Given that technically you would expect that actually we should be seeing a decline, not an increase. In your view, what's the problem?
It is unfortunate, so to say, that corruption, as you put it, it's on the increase. No doubt about that. It is on the increase. But efforts, initiatives have always been there to make sure that we either reduce the incidence of corruption or, if possible, eradicate it, if it can happen. I know it's difficult. But I think there are several reasons, in my view, and these are my personal views. I think it's the way we do things in this country. I'll try to avoid sounding political, because I'm not a politician, and I'll leave politics to the politicians. The first...
Everyone is a politician, really. Deep down.
Yes. I would first of all talk about duty bearers. We had the International Corruption Day commemoration on the 9th of December here in Lilongwe at the BICC. Our theme was demand accountability, stop corruption. It looks short, the theme, but it's loaded. And the message that we were trying to put across the people of Malawi was, let's start demanding accountability from the duty bearers. And on the part of the duty bearers, let's start doing the right things in the right manner. I will not be able to talk about everything. Time is not on our side, but I'll talk about public servants as duty bearers, because we are the ones that are employed to provide a service to the people of Malawi. A public servant is almost in each and every sector of society you can think of. You will find a public servant. And I've heard quite a lot, time and again, people pointing a finger at elected officials, politicians. Fine, they have their own reasons why they do that, and I'm not here to protect them or to say they do not have their own shortfalls. But I'll concentrate on the public servants. The moment the public servants start doing the right things in the right manner, we might change the course of this country. Because of several reasons. One, even for those politicians to be able to implement their programs, to be able to implement their manifestos, they'll need a public servant. Whether it's about education, health, agriculture, water, irrigation, security, defense, law enforcement, you'll find a public servant there. They will have to work with the public servant because they are the ones that implement government policies and programs. Why am I picking on public servants? The second reason, we are the biggest category of duty bearers. And I've said the moment you start doing the right things, we might change the course of this country. And you always hear, that's the second issue. Public servants, maybe they might have their own fears of victimization if they disregard instructions or advice that they get from elected officials. But it's supposed to be the other way around. We are the ones to advise them. We are the technocrats, we are the professionals. You might find a minister heading a ministry where he or she is not an expert in the mandate of that ministry. We have had a lawyer as a minister in the Ministry of Justice. We have a minister who's not a health practitioner in the Ministry of Health. Those people rely on us.
I'm glad you recognize that.
Yes, those people rely on us. The moment we're able to give them the right advice, the right professional, technical advice, my experience, I've worked in the public service for 16 years, they listen. The moment you start engaging them, they can give instructions, and as a professional, you know this is not right. This is not the right thing to do. The moment you engage them and tell them the reasons why you can't do certain things, they will listen.
Right. Okay.
Give them good reasons. You should not appear as if you're doing that with ulterior motives. They will listen because they know you are the technocrat, you are the professional. But unfortunately, we public servants have taken advantage of that, using our own greed to do the bad things, steal government money under the umbrella of pressure from politicians. That's not a good defense. It's not a defense at all, because it is you who know what to do. We are the ones that procure drugs and prescribe them to patients. We are the ones that examine cars at the road traffic, issue passports. We are the ones that operate IFMIS. It's not the politicians. So no excuse about that. Let's start doing the right things as public servants.
In other words, it's really just a lack of a moral compass, a moral ethic,
yes.
Right?
Ethical standards have gone down.
Okay, now speaking of moral ethics, let's talk about safety, your safety, and I'll look at it twofold. First of all, your safety in terms of your tenure of office. How safe do you feel given that the president could fire you at any one time?
When you look at the law, there is a safeguard.
What's the safeguard? For you?
Yes.
What's your safeguard?
Both as a director and a deputy director, because the appointment and disappointment is the same.
Okay.
Appointed by the president, confirmed by parliament. Ideally, even when it comes to filing or terminating our services, it has to go through parliament.
But you said ideally, because you know that wouldn't happen necessarily.
I'm saying ideally because looking back, it has never happened. The president can fire you if he wants to.
Yes. And would he be held to responsible if he did that? Would there be any kind of punitive measures in terms of constitutionality if he did that? Because you've clearly said ideally it should happen in Parliament. If the president does that, should he be held to account?
No one is above the law.
Even him, yes.
Again, when you look at the law, or law generally, you cannot justify a person for no reason at all. When you look at the Corrupt Practices Act, there are reasons why a director of the Bureau deputy can be removed from office. In the event that that is not followed, the law again provides a remedy, because we have a contract. And if one party terminates a contract, not in accordance with the provisions of a contract, you get compensated.
Okay, but does that work in the Malawian context? Do you feel comfortable knowing that you could just be removed just like that? Are you okay with that?
For me, maybe it's a bit different.
Okay, why?
Because I'm a public servant. If I have to be removed as a director of the Bureau, I'll go back to the public service where I came from. Before I came to the Bureau, I was working for the Ministry of Justice, and I never resigned.
In other words,
So
that's not something that you're going to be afraid of.
I have a job.
Okay.
In the public service. All
right. That was safety in terms of your tenure. Let's look at your physical safety. And what I mean by that is, look, it's no secret. A member of the Anti-Corruption Bureau lost his life. Issa Njauju, may his soul rest in peace, died in rather dubious, or under rather dubious and very, very sinister circumstances, which we believe were politically motivated. In fact, there's even a belief that they were actually looking for you, those who killed him, wanted to kill you and not him, and perhaps it was a case of mistaken identity. By the way, these are just speculations, and it's just allegations. We don't know that for a fact. The case is obviously still in court. But do you feel safe operating in an institution where such things are happening or can potentially happen? Someone could kill you. Have you thought about that?
Yes.
Do you think about that?
I do, quite a lot. You know, I will tell you one thing. Working in the Bureau, you need courage. The job that we do, I believe not each and every person can do it. There are risks involved, and we know that. Once you make a decision to work for the Bureau, you've made a decision to serve the people of Malawi, irrespective of the risks that come with it. It is unfortunate, and up to this day we still mourn our colleague Issa Njauju. May his soul rest in peace. I'll not talk much about that because the matter is still being investigated by the Malawi Police Service. But on our part, and again being a security issue, I'll not give more details, but government has done its part to provide enough security for us. But apart from that...
clearly it didn't in the case of Issa Njauju. This man lost his life. And I imagine the same precautionary measures that are there now were the ones that were there then, yet he still died.
There's been some changes.
Since then?
Of course, during that time, no one anticipated, because it had never happened before. None of us anticipated that that would happen. But several measures, security measures have taken place, have been put in place to ensure that we are safe. But I believe security is about you personally. Government can do its part, but as an individual, if you don't take your own precautionary measures, you can still be targeted.
Mind you, this is assuming that perhaps government, just for argument's sake, is not implicated in this kind of behavior in the first place. You're making the assumption that government is protecting you, but what if it's the very same government that's trying to get rid of you?
No, allow me not to comment on that. Otherwise, it will be speculation. But it would be unfortunate if the threat would come from government, because, as you said, it's the same government that provides security. But we would hope, and we have always hoped, that the government will not want to injure us or target us. Because if that's the case, then it would be unfortunate, because we're here to work for the people of Malawi on behalf of government. But in the event that the threat is coming from government, it might be a bit tricky. But if you ask me, I don't have proof that the threat would come from government. So I would proceed on the assumption that the threat will not come from government. But as I've said earlier on, I believe security is about you as a person. Government can do its part, but we also need to take our initiatives as officers of the Bureau. But above all else, I think we only just have to put God first. That's the best defense that we have. Otherwise, you cannot guarantee 100% security on your part.
No.
What we have done, we have put in place, apart from security provided for government, our own internal arrangements to ensure that we are safe. Where we feel like we are not safe, we normally work hand in hand with our colleagues in the Malawi Police Service. We alert them. But threat can come from any quarter, individuals, companies, because we investigate almost each and every category of society.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you accept that it is a very risky job, a very dangerous job.
It is.
But yet it's still worthwhile to you. I think that's the most important thing to take away here.
Yes.
This is still a worthy cause to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. We get our satisfaction because we know we are providing a service to the people of Malawi. Somebody has to do this job.
Okay.
If all of us back off, then why exist?
Okay.
Why fight corruption?
Now, let's look at your portfolio, which you've inherited, or maybe perhaps you're already working on. Some of the two biggest cases that you're dealing with and you have to handle, obviously, the George Chaponda issue, the Maze Gate scandal, and of course, this Issa Njauju case as well, if I'm not mistaken. I know we can't comment too much about Issa Njauju's case because it's still in court, but I want to know from you, I want to hear from you, how confident are you that Issa Njauju's family is going to get justice as a member of the ACB?
Oh,
Speaking now as someone from the ACB, just generally.
Okay, all right. No, thanks for that. But let me just clarify one or two things.
Mm-hmm.
The case that is in court is the one to do with Honorable George Chaponda and not
Yes.
Issa Njauju.
Okay.
The one to relating to the late Issa Njauju is the one which is being investigated by the police. But I've received this question for more than 5 or 6 times
Okay.
this year alone about you being now the Director General of the Bureau. You'll be leading in the investigations of the death of Issa Njauju, or what are you going to do about it?
Yes.
Let me put it very clearly to the people of Malawi, once and for all. The Bureau is not investigating the death of Issa Njauju. We do not investigate murder cases. That is the mandate of the Malawi Police Service. We of course are coordinating with the police because he was our officer. The time he died, he was one of the senior officers in the Bureau. But the ones that are investigating this murder are the Malawi Police Service, not the Bureau. So for me, as a Director General, I will not be the one leading because it's outside our mandate.
But are you confident that justice will prevail? Just in your capacity as Reyneck Matemba and indeed the Director General of the ACB, where this gentleman happened to work, do you feel confident that justice will be served?
I am confident.
Given the way things are today.
I am confident.
And our law enforcement today.
And my confidence comes in from the actions that I've seen being taken. Like I've indicated, there was a time we worked closely with the Malawi Police Service because they used to come here, interview people, look for documents, get more information about his professional background, the late Issa Njauju. And recently, you might have heard in Parliament, the Minister of Justice, Honorable Sam Tebeni, announcing to the country, the people of Malawi, that government had engaged the British police, Scotland Yard, to help the Malawi government, the Malawi Police Service, in investigating the death of Issa Njauju. So, on my part, as a person working in the Bureau, and who was there when Issa died, I'm confident the right things will be done. I cannot guarantee or speak on behalf of the Malawi Police Service how they are doing it, when they'll finish that. Like I've said, it's outside our mandate. But I'm sure it is the hope of everybody, including government, to see that this matter is investigated properly to its proper conclusion. Yeah.
This is the same case where we've learned that now there's even an international interest, am I right? Where even Scotland Yard are going to come all the way from Europe here, it comes from the United Kingdom, come to Malawi to investigate forensically the details of this murder. What are your thoughts on that? I know obviously you're not investigating murder, but what are your thoughts on that? Does it make sense after so long to have an institution like the Scotland Yard come after all these years to investigate? Is this an indictment of our own justice system and perhaps our own investigative capacity?
And again, on that question, allow me not to comment.
Why not? You're commenting just like any other Malawian, not just as a member, as a Director General of the ACB.
Unfortunately, I still remain the Director General of the ACB, and I'm working in the law enforcement area. It would be unreasonable and I think unfair on my part to the Malawi Police Service to comment on how they're investigating this case.
But you must have your own views.
I have my own views, but I would rather keep them to myself.
That says a lot. That says a lot. All right, we'll let that one go. Let's move on to the 577 billion kwacha turned 236 billion kwacha case before we go. Where are we with that? It's a very contentious issue. Names of ministers supposedly implicated, and we keep seeing a lot of flip-flopping. ACB saying one thing, the Attorney General saying another, Auditor General also saying something else. What's going on?
Again, I'll talk something about it, just to show you that we have nothing to hide. But as you rightly know, this matter is under investigation. You've mentioned the figure 577 billion.
That's how it started, yes.
Yes. We hear of a different figure. Is it 236 billion?
Yes, it was reduced.
Yeah. We received 13 files from the Auditor General. We are working on those files. We have concluded 4 files.
Out of the 13?
Out of the 13. We are about to conclude a 5th file. Next week, we are having a press briefing in Blantyre on the 18th. We will give details on the 4 files that we concluded our investigations on. It's not an easy task. You've mentioned I'm glad you used the term supposedly. 7 ministers are mentioned. If you are to ask me, looking at the files, you do not find names of 7 cabinet ministers. And that I can repeat 100 times. Okay,
is that to suggest that you won't find names of cabinet ministers, or you won't find any names implicated in there at all? What are you saying?
That we cannot tell. I'll give you an example. When we started investigating cash gate cases, 2013, there were names that when you look at the file were not there. But when you started investigating, some files that were not there, some names rather that were not there, came up. I'm not saying this is what is going to happen in relation to the 13 files. But what I'm saying is, on record, when you look at the 13 files, you will not find any name of a cabinet minister on the 13 files. And
so where is all this coming from? We've heard a number of quarters. Obviously, like I said, it's just speculation. One, Kamlepo Kalua, was very, very vehemently arguing that there were certainly names, and we've all, even as the media said, right, if he knows who the names are or who these people are, why can't he just reveal it? And this is, of course, also the the deputy of the Parliamentary or Public Accounts Committee of Parliament. Yet, he said that, but you're saying there's absolutely nothing, in your view. So where is he getting all this from? Where are people getting this information from? I
will not comment on what Honorable Galua said and how he said it, but I'm giving you information on the files that we have. When you flip through the files, you will not see any name of a cabinet minister. And that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
But I'm not saying names will not come up of whoever. Because once you start investigating, one thing can lead you to another.
How long is this going to take you, Reyneck, to conclude?
I might not be able to tell, but we are trying our best as a bureau to make sure that we finish investigating the files as soon as possible. There's so much interest around these files. And the longer we take to conclude these files, the mist will remain hanging over us.
As will the speculation.
Yes, and questions will always be directed at the bureau. It's something that we are not happy with. We are not like in a comfort zone. We are always very mindful of what people think about us, and we want to change that perception. One way of doing that is to make sure that we do our investigations as quickly as we can, so that we conclude them. Whether we find evidence, we take them to court, or we clear the individuals and the companies. Okay, lastly, in the interest of time, because we have run out of time, I'm glad you've talked about the issue of the fact that there's no names, etc., and how you want to conclude the case of the 236 billion kwacha. I've also interviewed Alekeni Menyani, who is, of course, the chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee, and he was saying that he would want to, as much as they have their mandate as an oversight body, they would also hope that the other bodies like yourselves, other arms, would have to be effective too, meaning that once they've carried out, for example, whatever hearings, investigations, they would now want to see action, and in the form of, for example, institutions like yours. He says that he is willing to whip institutions like yours into action. Are you ready to be whipped into action?
to actually make sure cases are concluded? Because that's what I talked about with him. We see lovely reports, etc., but we never see a satisfactory conclusion. And that's what Malawians want. And he says that it would be nice to see everybody working tirelessly. And meeting their end of the bargain.
Yes, I'm glad that you raised that in respect to public appointment, public accounts committee. First and foremost, I would say it's unfortunate that it came from the chair of the public accounts committee. The public accounts committee has no mandate whatsoever over the bureau.
No, that's not what he said. He didn't say. He just said that he would want, once they've done their job, everyone else to do theirs too. That's what he was saying.
That's what we do. That's what we are doing. And our approach has always been non-confrontational because we have a law that we follow. We normally liaise with and we report to the Legal Affairs Committee. When you look at our interaction with the Legal Affairs Committee, everything is perfect. We work hand in hand perfectly well. And they're always inviting us to advise us where they think we're not doing well or where they want more information. They always invite us, we go there. We relate with them very well. But if the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament wants to think that the idea behind that statement was to see us doing the right things.
Yes.
And that's exactly what we're doing, and we want to continue doing that. If that's the idea, we don't have any problem. But if the idea is to put one another on the spotlight, I think that's not the way to go. That's not the way to do things. Because each one of us have a mandate to fulfill, and we are serving the very same people, the people of Malawi, and would rather respect each other's mandates.
Okay. Lastly, before we go, are you confident, Reyneck, that you can do this job? Are you ready to confront the powers that be? Are you ready to take a cabinet minister to task if indeed he was involved in corruption, etc., etc.? Are you ready to do all these things within your tenure?
That's exactly why I accepted to become the Director General of the Bureau. Like I said, I had an audience with the President. We discussed a number of things. The other thing that he told me, which impressed me, was, Mr. Matemba, you're a lawyer just like me. I'm also a lawyer. Always be guided by the law. That statement was loaded. In other words, what the President was telling me is, no selective application of the law, just do your work. Don't look at faces or colors of parties or individuals. And that is what compelled me to accept to become the Director General of the Bureau. I know I have the support of the President.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Reyneck Matemba. It was such a pleasure talking to you today. We're going to have to leave it there. As you've heard there, we were talking to the newly appointed Director General of the Anti-Corruption Bureau, Mr. Reyneck Matemba. But I'm afraid that is where we're going to have to leave Times Exclusive for this week. We'll, of course, be back next week, same time, same place. Until then, from me, Wezi Kasambala, it's bye-bye.